Today, we're diving into the incredible story of how the world's largest democracy, India, created its own rulebook. This isn't just a history lesson, it's the story of how a nation was built, piece by piece, word by word.
So, let's start with the absolute basics. What is a constitution? Well, you can think of it as the ultimate rulebook for a country. It's the supreme law that lays out the whole system, how the government works, what rights you and I have as citizens, and the fundamental structure of the state itself.
Now, India's constitution, it's in a league of its own. It's famous for being the longest written constitution in the entire world. But why so massive? It wasn't just because the authors liked to write. They had this monumental task of uniting an incredibly diverse nation. We're talking countless languages, religions, and cultures, while also trying to fix centuries of social inequality. So yeah, they had to spell everything out.
So where did this whole journey even begin? Well, it didn't start in some fancy committee room. It started decades earlier with a really powerful idea that Indians, and only Indians, should be the ones to write their own future.
But you know, getting from that initial idea to an actual plan took a while. The first official call was made way back in 1934 by M.N. Roy. The Indian National Congress made it their official demand a year later, but it wasn't until 1946 that the British government finally sent the cabinet mission to get the wheels turning.
The assembly that they formed was this fascinating mix. Out of 389 members total, you had representatives elected from British-controlled India, working right alongside people nominated by the independent princely states. It was a real hybrid, designed to make sure that pretty much every corner of the subcontinent had a voice at the table.
Okay, so you've got everyone in the room, now what? Well, their first job wasn't to get bogged down in legal details. No, before any of that, they had to agree on a guiding philosophy, a grand vision that would essentially become the soul of this new nation.
And they did not waste any time. The first meeting was on December 9, 1946, where they appointed a temporary president. Just 2 days later, they elected Dr. Rajendra Prasad as the permanent president, and the brilliant jurist B.N. Rao was brought on as the chief constitutional advisor. They were ready to go. Then, just a couple of days after that, came a truly historic moment. On December 13th, Jawaharlal Nehru stood up and presented something called the Objective Resolution. This wasn't just some administrative motion, this was a declaration, a bold promise about what India was going to be.
This resolution was literally the blueprint for the nation. It laid out the core, non-negotiable principles. India would be a sovereign republic. It would guarantee things like justice, equality, and fundamental rights for every single citizen. And crucially, it would have specific protections for minorities. These ideas were so powerful they became the very heart of the Constitution's preamble.
All right, so with that powerful vision locked in, it was time to move from philosophy to the nitty-gritty. Now came the absolutely colossal task of translating those big ideas into a detailed, working legal document. This is where the architects really got to work.
2 years, 11 months, and 18 days. Just let that sink in for a second. That is how long the Assembly spent debating, drafting, and finalizing the Constitution. That number alone tells you everything you need to know about the incredible effort that went into every single word.
Now, the immense job of taking thousands of hours of debate and turning it into precise legal language fell to one core group, the drafting committee. You can think of them as the powerhouse team of legal wizards who had to put together the first draft for everyone else to discuss.
And the chairman of this powerhouse committee was none other than Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. His incredible legal mind, his deep understanding of India's social problems, and his sheer skill in guiding the debates, it all rightfully earned him the title, the father of the Indian Constitution.
But here's what's so smart. These architects didn't try to reinvent the wheel. They were practical. They studied constitutions from all over the globe, picking and choosing the best ideas that would work for India. They took inspiration from Britain's parliamentary system, America's Bill of Rights, and France's ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity, and then wove it all together into something uniquely Indian. So after all the research, the marathon debates, the endless drafts and revisions, the final document was ready. This magnificent structure was finally complete, all set to be adopted and presented to the new nation. It's so important to remember that the Constitution was designed to be a living, breathing document. The original text from 1949 started with 395 articles, but it was built to evolve. Over the decades, through many amendments, it has grown to meet the needs of a changing India, and today it has well over 440 articles. Now, Two dates here are absolutely key. The Constitution was officially adopted on November 26, 1949, but it was actually brought into full force 2 months later, on January 26, 1950. And that date wasn't just picked out of a hat. Oh no, it was chosen for a very specific, very symbolic reason.
See, choosing January 26 was a powerful nod to the freedom struggle. It was on that exact day, way back in 1930, that the Indian National Congress had first declared Purna Swaraj, complete independence. So by making this the day the Republic was officially born, the new nation was honoring its past while stepping boldly into its future.
So, what did this whole masterpiece create in the end? Well, it established the very pillars of modern India: a federal system to manage its incredible diversity, a parliamentary government, a guaranteed list of fundamental rights for every person, the declaration of a secular state, an independent judiciary to keep power in check, and a single citizenship to unite everyone as Indians. This is the framework that has guided the world's largest democracy for over 70 years.
You know, the making of India's constitution was so much more than a political process. It was an act of incredible hope in the face of unbelievable challenges. It was a promise of democracy and justice to a people who had just won their freedom. So I'll leave you with a final thought. Of all the powerful principles baked into this text, liberty, equality, secularism, which one do you think our world today needs to hear the most?